December 1862.
Quickly, get him up.
Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest was given unprecedented orders. His mission: disrupt Federal rail and telegraph lines, supplying troops between Vicksburg, Mississippi, and Memphis, Tennessee.
For the first time, railroads took their place in history as a means of moving troops and supplies rapidly from one point to another. A soldier might fight in Mississippi one week and the next week be in Missouri. So railroads revolutionized the war.
Forrest's campaign was so bold, so audacious, and so unprecedented that the raids are still studied at West Point.
Forrest was a master of psychological warfare. As he moved his troops through Middle Tennessee, he spread rumors as to their exact numbers, intended to greatly exaggerate the number of troops.
The fact was, Forrest was always outnumbered, and many times on many missions, darkness and stealth and nerve were required.
And that's where Private Coble came into play. He and Major Nicholas Cox and their group of Middle Tennessee soldiers went to the trestle in the pre-dawn darkness of December 19, 1862. They had not expected it to be heavily defended, but recently a stockade and blockhouse had been constructed. So as they approached the trestle in the dark of night, the Federal troops spotted them and opened fire. Private Coble was hit. He went down. His fellow soldiers knew that he was either dead or injured, and they left because they had no means of reducing fortifications such as a blockhouse.
Private James Coble, the only casualty of a failed secret mission. His horse was returned to his family. They did not know where he died or how he died.
Private James Coble was 31 years old when he died. He was the father of 4 children. He farmed a 14-acre farm in near Hohenwald, Tennessee, in Lewis County. He had served the previous year as part of the 1st Tennessee Heavy Artillery. He was an artilleryman. So I think that was maybe one reason he was chosen to blow up a trestle. He had a knowledge of gunpowder.
Coble's widow did her best on that poor farm with 4 children. It had to be difficult. They grew their own food, made their own clothes, and made it on 14 acres of mediocre farmland. It was a difficult legacy. Not only did Private Coble die, but another family member, Samuel Whiteside, also died as a result of that war. His story is in the book, but out of this hardship emerged a most unlikely success story. J.A. Coble, the son of the private, was destined for greatness. A self-educated man, a gifted entrepreneur, he ended up wealthy and a popular mayor in Union City. But he was always plagued with a nagging question. What happened to my father? How did he die? Even this gifted, self-made man would have never known without an unexpected act of generosity.
In 1914, a letter appeared in the Jackson Sun. It had been written by Captain David Hartz of Lincoln, Illinois. Captain Hartz had been in command of the 23 Federal soldiers that were on duty at the blockhouse where Private Coble was killed in 1862. Captain Hartz was First Sergeant Hartz at the time of Private Coble's death. He had witnessed the death. He had taken part in Private Coble's burial the morning after he was killed.
He described the place where Private Coble fell. It matched local descriptions of the incident. Witnesses corroborated. And so a grateful son commissioned a rare monument to his father. A Civil War grave marker like none other because it mentioned the adversary. The inscription includes both sides, both men, Private Coble and Captain Hartz. How many monuments or gravestones you know in the war for either side where they note the other side? As it notes the name, the regiment, James Coble, 10th Tennessee, unknown for 51 years, and then the facts ascertained by a federal captain in a letter to the Jackson Sun. What a noble gesture, and I get goosebumps right now. It gave the family closure after 51 years. And why did Captain Hartz insist to write a detailed description of Private Coble's death 51 years earlier?
The good death concept in the 19th century was quite prevalent. Everyone wanted to die a good death. They wanted to die at home. They wanted to die at peace. They wanted to be surrounded by their family and loved ones. They wanted to be forgiven of their sins, to forgive people who had sinned against them. So it wasn't that it was a guilty conscience, it's that he wanted to have a good death near the end of his life, and he wanted the family of Private Coble to know what happened to their loved one.
It is a deeply personal act of reconciliation at a time when the country was deeply interested in reconciliation. As Captain Hartz lay on his deathbed in 1914, something terrible was looming across the ocean. World War I. America was gathering as one to fight evil overseas.
The Civil War divided us and left scars that are still with us today. The great thing that came out of the Civil War was a rebirth, a chance to build a new nation under new principles that would be unified and that would become, starting with that war of 1914, the war where we stepped forth and fulfilled our destiny as a nation to lead the world in the principles of democracy, faith, and accomplishment.
A monument to healing. Dr. Charles Cox reached deep into his family history and his own heart to bring to life the story of his great-great-grandfather's death and the unexpected ending to the story, co-authored and researched by Civil War historian Dr. Spurgeon King. Dr. Cox grew up in Union City, across from his great-grandmother, Lucy Whiteside Coble. This was living, breathing history for the young man who grew up to be an accomplished surgeon in Jackson, Tennessee. practicing for decades not far from where his great-great-grandfather fell. Upon retirement, Dr. Cox immersed himself in the story. He felt destined, even compelled to tell. You can find the book and the whole story at charlescox.co. A remarkable story that begins in war and ends in a lasting peace.